The first night of the school camping trip wasn't supposed to change anything in my life. It was just supposed to be a weekend away from classes, a break from homework, a mandatory bonding experience. Nobody really wanted, the teachers talked about teamwork and trust, but everyone knew the truth. We were just excited to be out of classroom and sleeping under the stars. I still remember the smell of pine trees when we stepped off the school bus, the way the forest opened in front of us like a world hidden from everything familiar. I remember the sound of laughter from groups of friends who already felt like they belonged. And I remember one person. More than anyone else, Darren Grant, the kind of guy everyone noticed without trying, tall, athletic, calm in a way that made people trust him instantly. He wasn't loud like the other popular guys, he didn't need to be. Darren walked through life as though he knew exactly who he was, and I had spent most of my life trying to avoid people like that. People who saw too much, people who could see through me. But that night in front of the bonfire with shadows dancing on our faces, Darren sat next to me like it was the most natural thing in the world. And when the group started telling ghost stories and the teachers weren't paying attention, Darren leaned close, so close I felt his breath warm against my ear, and he said something that made my entire body freeze, something I was not prepared for, something I have never forgot. If you want to know what happened on that night and why those words still echo inside me, stay with me until the end of the story, because what he whispered changed everything I thought I knew about him and about myself. Now let's begin. I never planned on sitting near the fire. I'm not the type who enjoys being in the center of anything. Usually, I'm the one sitting at the edge of the group, half listening, pretending to be on my phone, hoping no one notices me. But the teachers had told us to spread out evenly, and somehow I ended up wedged between two people I barely knew, staring at flames that cracked and spit sparks into the dark sky. Across from me, sitting with absolute confidence, like he owned the whole campsite, was Darren Grant. I tried not to look at him, I really did, but it was like trying not to look at a lightning storm. You know it's dangerous, you know it'll leave you breathless, and yet your eyes keep drifting toward it. The firelight carved shadows across his jawline, catching a faint scar he near his eyebrow, something he gotten in middle school from falling off a skateboard. According to rumors, his dark hair fell carelessly over his forehead in a way that would look messy on anyone else, but somehow looked intentional on him. And then there were his eyes, calm, piercing, unreadable. I kept telling myself not to stare. Of course he caught me staring. He lifted one eyebrow just slightly, like he was amused, then looked back at the fire. I jerked my gaze away and pretended to be fascinated by a burnt marshmallow someone had dropped in the dirt. My heart wouldn't slow down no matter how many deep breaths I took. Darren had that effect on people. The teachers passed around bags of marshmallows, chocolate, and graham crackers. Everyone got loud, laughing, pushing each other, burning their fingers on skewers. It should have been comforting, but all it did was make me feel more like an outsider until something unexpected happened. Darren stood up, walked around the fire, and sat down right next to me. Not near me, not on the same side, right next to me. Our knees almost touching, close enough for me to feel the warmth of the skin even through my jeans. "Hey," he said, casually, as if we were already friends. Hey, your name's Aaron, right?" I swallowed. "Yeah, Aaron Blake." He nodded like he was committing it to memory, which only made me more nervous. "I've seen you around school," he said. "Didn't know you came on these trips." I usually don't, I admitted. "Why'd you come on this one?" I shrugged. "Didn't have a good excuse not to." He laughed softly, like he actually found that answer interesting instead of sad. "Fair enough," he said. His voice had that low, calm tone that made everything he said sound intentional. Meanwhile, I could barely trust my own voice not to crack. Before I could think of anything else to say, the teacher announced, "Ghost story time." Everyone groaned and cheered at the same time. Mr. Collins stepped forward with a flashlight under his chin, classic horror movie style, and launched into a story about some ranger who'd gone missing in these woods decades ago. The story was cheesy, dramatic, and obviously fake, but it didn't matter. Darren leaned slightly closer as a firelight flickered, and I Caught myself tense all over again. He wasn't touching me, but he was close enough for it to feel intentional. I don't know how long the story lasted. 5 minutes 10, time felt strange with Darren next to me like the night air had thickened. When the story finally ended, half the group joked about being scared and the other half pretended they weren't. The fire crackled sparks, rising into the dark trees like fireflies, and then out of nowhere Darren spoke again. "You seem nervous," he murmured, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "I'm not nervous." I lied badly, he smiled. "You're terrible liar." I felt my face heat. "I'm just not used to this being around people being around you." I regretted it immediately. My stomach dropped. I wished I could swallow the words back into my chest, but Darren didn't tease me, he didn't smirk, he didn't look shocked, he just studied me with a look I couldn't decipher. Then the teacher called everyone to stand up and stretch. Breaking the moment, people wandered away to grab water, check messages, or argue about which ghost story to tell. Next, I stayed seated, staring at the fire like it might offer an escape. Then I felt a presence behind me, warm clothes, a breath brushed near my ear. I froze. "It's okay," Darren said quietly, his voice almost whisper. "I get nervous too." I turned my head slightly, but he was so close that if I moved another inch our noses might touch. I whispered back, "You don't seem nervous." He gave a soft laugh. "That's because I'm good at hiding it." His breath grazed my skin again. I swear my heart tripped over itself. "Do you want to know the real reason I sat next to you?" Darren asked. I opened my mouth but nothing came out. He leaned just a little closer, so close that every part of me went warm and tense. "I noticed you watching me," he whispered. My breath caught and I wanted to see. He paused. My pulse pounded so hard I was sure he could hear it. "If you look away again." I barely had time to process that before he added in a tone so soft it made every hair on my arms rise. "Aaron, don't look away this time." His words felt like a spark running through my whole body. Terrifying, electrifying, impossible to ignore. I turned toward him fully this time, our faces inches apart, the world narrowing to nothing but the heat between us. But before I could say anything, before I could breathe, a sudden scream echoed from deeper in the woods. The entire group snapped toward the sound and Darren grabbed my hand hard. "Aaron," he whispered, eyes wide with something I'd never seen them before. "Fear, we need to go now." The scream didn't sound like a joke. It wasn't a playful kind of scream someone makes when they're trying to scare their friends. It was sharp, ragged, and full of something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Darren didn't hesitate. He tightened his grip on my hand and pulled me up. "Come on," he said urgently. People around the fire were already scrambling to their feet, voices overlapping with confusion. "What was that? Was that Liam? Where did it come from? Should we go look?" Mr. Collins shouted for everyone to stay calm, but nobody listened. Flashlights flicked on, leaves crunched under frantic feet. Half the group started running toward the tree, and Darren didn't run with them. He pulled me to the side toward the shadows. "Not that way," he muttered. "Why not? Someone might need help." "They're fine, they're all together. They'll scream again if it's real." He lowered his voice. "What worries me is how close that sounded." I swallowed hard. "Close like you knew it was coming." He didn't answer right away. "That scared me more than the scream." "Darren," I said, my voice barely steady. "What are you telling me?" He looked into the darkness as if expecting something or someone to appear. "There's stuff about this woods the teachers don't tell people." He finally said. "They want these trips to look safe, controlled, but every year something happens." "What kind of something?" Darren's jaw clenched. "Last year a junior disappeared for 3 hours. They said he got lost, but he came back shaking so hard he couldn't talk about what." "That's the thing," Darren whispered. He never said. A chill traveled down my spine. "But that scream," I began. "That scream wasn't the start of something," he said quietly. "It was the warning." Before I could ask what that meant, another flashlight beam swept near us. Darren immediately stepped in front of me like he didn't want anyone to see me, but it was just Mrs. Alden, the biology teacher, hurriedly checking if anyone was wandering too far. "I don't want them splitting us up," Darren whispered. "They'll send people back to their tents in groups, and I need to talk to you away from everyone." "Talk to me about what?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just pulled me deeper into the trees. The further we walked, the quieter everything became. The laughter, the shouting, even the fire crackling faded. Behind us, all that remained was a soft crunch of pine needles under our shoes and a cold night pressing against my skin. When we finally stopped, the only light came from Darren's phone flashlight. He turned toward me slowly. "Aaron, earlier at the fire when I whispered to you, I wasn't just messing around. I wasn't teasing, I said it. Because branches snapped somewhere behind us." Darren grabbed my wrist again, pulling me closer to him. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. "Yes," I breathed. He turned off the flashlight instantly. Darkness swallowed us in an instant. "Stay still," he murmured. We stood frozen, barely breathing. Woods around us were too silent, not even crickets. It was as if everything had stopped to listen. After a few seconds, I whispered, "Maybe it was just a squirrel." That was too heavy for a squirrel. More branches cracked, closer. This time I felt Darren tense beside me. "Aaron," he whispered, "if anything happens, you run back to the campground. Don't stop, don't look back, anything happens." "Darren, you're scaring me." "Good," he said, "because fear makes you move faster." Something rustled to our left. My heart slammed into my ribs. My breathing turned shallow. Suddenly, Darren's hand found mine in the dark, not pulling, not dragging, just holding tight, steady, like he was silently saying, "I'm here." "Aaron," he whispered, "I need you to trust me." I do," he exhaled, relieved. "Good." A shadow moved between the trees, then another. Darren stepped in front of me again. "Show yourself," he called out. My breath caught. Why would he challenge someone? But the shadows kept moving. Slow, careful, not an animal, definitely not a teacher. I pressed closer to Darren's back without meaning to. "Darren," I whispered, "who is that?" His voice was low and steady. "If it's who I think it is, we need to get out of here." Before I could react, a flashlight clicked on in the distance. A dim yellow beam swam between the trees. Then a voice followed, a familiar one. "Oh look," the voice drawled, "Gran's got company." My blood froze. I recognized that voice from school. Everyone did. Tyler Reed, the guy who'd been in fights since freshman year. The guy teachers avoided provoking. The guy who always stared at Darren like a challenge waiting to happen. Darren muttered a curse. I knew it. Tyler's flashlight beam swung toward us, illuminating the trees little by little. "What are you doing out here?" Darren demanded. Tyler laughed. "Same as you, following the scream, making sure nobody's out here panicking alone." But the tone of his voice said something else, some darker. He took another step toward us. "You shouldn't sneak off with him, Grant," Tyler said, eyes flicking toward me. "People might misunderstand." Darren stiffened. "Back off, Tyler." "What?" Tyler sneered. "Going to start something out here in the dark." The air grew heavier. Tyler lifted his flashlight higher. The beam landed on my face. "So this is the kid you've been watching all night," Tyler said. "No wonder you ran." My stomach lurched. Darren moved so fast I barely saw it. He stepped in front of me again, blocking Tyler's view. "Tyler," Darren said, voice trembling with anger, "you touch him and I swear." Tyler smirked. "Relax, I'm not here to fight." He took one more slow, deliberate step. The light hit Darren directly. "But something tells me," Tyler said softly, "we're going to have problem." Before Darren could respond, another scream, much louder this time, echoed across the woods. A real scream, a terrified one. We all turned toward the sound. Tyler's expression finally dropped its cocky edge. "What the hell was that?" he muttered. Darren grabbed my arm. "Aaron," he whispered urgently, "run." "But you run." And for the first time that night I did. I didn't think, I just ran. Branches whipped against my arms, the cold air cutting into my lungs. The woods blurred into streaks of black and silver as moonlight flashed between the branches. My heartbeat thundered louder than my footsteps. Behind me I could hear Darren shouting something. Maybe my name, maybe an order, but fear drowned everything out. When I finally stumbled into a clearing, I collapsed onto my hands and knees, gasping for breath. For a moment, everything was silent again, too silent. I looked over my shoulder. No Darren, no Tyler, no flashlight, only the dark. A wave of panic surged through me. I stood shakily, turning in circles, trying to find the direction I came from. "Darren," I called out, my voice trembling. "Where are you?" Nothing, just a soft rustling of leaves barely there. I swallowed hard and forced my legs to move. One step, To another, I kept walking toward where I thought the camp might be, but the woods all looked the same now, tall. Pines twisting branches, shadows curling like fingers, then I heard it. Footsteps, not hurried, not frantic, slow, deliberate, coming from behind me. I spun around, heart slamming violently in my chest. Darren, no answer. The footsteps got closer. Tyler, I whispered, still nothing. The silence was somehow worse than any response. I backed away until my heel hit a fallen trunk. Moonlight finally cut through a break in the trees, just enough for me to see a silhouette emerging from the shadows. Tall, broad shoulders moving. With purpose, I braced myself against the tree, hands shaking. Who's there? I stammered. The figure stepped closer, and then Aaron. I nearly collapsed again. Darren. He jogged toward me, breathing hard, eyes wide with relief. I thought I lost you, he said, grabbing my shoulders. His hands were warm despite the cold air, grounding me instantly. Why did you run so far? Told you to go back to camp, not deeper into the woods. I swallowed, trying to steady my breathing. I panicked. I didn't know where I was going. His grip softened. It's okay, you're safe now. Safe with him. I almost believed it. What about Tyler? I asked. Did he follow us? Darren glanced over his shoulder. Scanning the darkness, he went the other direction, probably toward the main trail. I shivered. What was that scream? Who was it? I don't know, Darren admitted, but I don't think it was Parson Prank. He lowered his voice. We're not alone out here. A chill ran through me. Then why are we still in the woods? Because if we go back now, he said, they'll question us separately. Teachers, Tyler, whoever else heard that scream, and I still haven't told you what I need to tell you. I blinked. You want to talk now, Darren? This is not he. Cut me off gently. I'm not wasting another second avoiding it. His voice had changed, deeper, steadier, full of something that felt like a confession. Pressing to escape, he took a small step closer. I didn't move away. Aaron, he said softly, I didn't sit next to you at the fire because I felt like it. I didn't whisper to you because I wanted to scare you. I did it because he paused, searching my eyes, because I've been paying attention to you for months. My breath caught. What? I noticed you the first week you transferred. Dare. Continued, voice barely above a whisper. I notice how you keep your head down. How you always sit near a window, how you disappear when people get loud. My heart hammered painfully. I noticed you watching me once, he said, but you looked away so fast I thought I imagined it. After that, I started noticing everything. I felt heat rising into my face. Darren, he stepped closer again. Our bodies just inches apart now, and tonight when you looked at me across the fire you didn't look away. His voice softened again. I needed to know if that meant something. It did, I admitted quietly. It does. A breath escaped his lips, shaky like he'd been holding it for weeks. Before either of us could say another word, leaves crunched somewhere behind us. Closer this time. Heavier. We both stiffened. Darren immediately reached for my hand. Stay with me, he whispered. The footsteps grew louder. Darren pushed me behind him, positioning himself like a barrier. Show yourself, he yelled into the dark. The footsteps stopped. Silence. And then something rushed toward us. Darren grabbed me and shoved me behind a fallen log just as a dark shape blurred through the trees. I ducked instinctively, heart pounding in my throat. Darren, what is that? I whispered. I don't know, he hissed. The shape moved again, fast, low to ground. Circling as like it was searching. A twig snapped near my left foot. Darren's hand closed around mine under the log. Aaron, he whispered urgently, whatever happens, don't run this time. I nodded, trembling, but before I could ask anything else the shape lunged again, and this time the moonlight hit it just enough for me to see a face. Not an animal, not Tyler, not a teacher, a student, one of the juniors, his face pale, eyes wide and unfocused, breathing fast and shallow. Help, he gasped. Please, someone's out there. Then his eyes rolled back and he collapsed on the ground inches from us. Darren crawled out from behind the log and knelt beside him. Hey, can you hear me? He asked, shaking the boy gently. The junior didn't respond. He was shaking, sweating, terrified. What happened to him? I whispered. Darren looked up at me, fear deep in his eyes. We need to get back to camp now. He stood up, grabbing my hand again, but as we turned to run, we heard a voice behind us. Low, broken whisper, not the junior's, not Darren's, not mine, from somewhere deep in the woods. Someone said, he's next. Darren whipped around. Who said that? He shouted, but the trees only echoed silence. He pulled me close, gripping my hand so tightly it almost hurt. Aaron, he whispered, stay with me, something is very, very wrong out here. Then a flashlight beam snapped on in the distance, and someone started running straight toward us. The beam of the flashlight cut through the trees like a blade. I instinctively stepped closer to Darren, my hand finding his without thinking. His fingers tightened around mine, steady and fierce as the sound of running footsteps came closer. Stay behind me, he whispered. I didn't argue this time. A second later, the person burst through the bushes. Not Tyler, not Mason, not anyone I expected. It was Mr. Collins, our history teacher. He looked out of breath, sweat sticking to his forehead despite the cold. His flashlight trembled in his hand as his eyes darted around, scanning for danger. There you two are, he hissed. What are you doing this far from camp? Didn't you hear the instructions? Everyone's supposed to stay together. Darren didn't step aside. Mr. Collins, he said evenly. Someone screamed, and we just found a junior passed out in the woods. Mr. Collins' expression shifted, a flash of something like fear quickly masked by annoyance. Where? He demanded back. There, I said, pointing to the trees behind us. He said something was out here, something or someone chased him. Mr. Collins lowered the flashlight slightly. All right, show me, Dare. Hesitated. We should get Aaron back to camp first. No, Mr. Collins snapped, his voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. Both of you show me where he is. A strange chill crawled up my spine. Darren noticed it. He stepped closer to me, his shoulder brushing mine. Fine. Darren said quietly, follow us. We led him back to the spot behind the fallen log. The flashlight beam danced across the forest floor as we approached, but when we reached the place, the junior was gone, completely gone. What the? I whispered, looking around frantically. He was right here. Mr. Collins swung his flashlight in a quick arc, but all we saw were disturbed leaves and footprints leading deeper into the woods. Fresh footprints. Darren crouched beside them, his jaw tightening. Someone dragged him. Dragged, I gasped. Mr. Collins swallowed hard. All right, he said, trying to sound calm. We need to go back now. Darren didn't move. Mr. Collins, what exactly is happening here? This isn't the time for questions. Back to camp. But something in the teacher's voice was off. Too rushed, too controlled, too scared. Darren straightened slowly. We're not leaving without him. You don't have a choice, Mr. Collins snapped. Both of you back to camp. That's an order. Darren stepped in front of me again, protective, unyielding. With all due respect, sir, he said quietly, if something is dragging kids into the woods, leaving them alone in camp is not safer. Mr. Collins clenched his jaw. Darren, I'm warning you. But he didn't finish because we all heard it. A long, low moan echoing through the trees, human but twisted with pain. It floated through the woods like a dying breath. I shivered violently. That's him, I whispered. It has to be. Darren turned sharply. Aaron, stay close. Mr. Collins stepped forward. No, Darren, stop. But Darren was already moving, following the sound, and I followed him because I couldn't stay behind. Not now, not after everything I'd seen. Darren kept his hand on mine as we slipped between trees, ducking under branches, our footprints crunching over layers of pine needles. Another moan echoed, this one closer, off to our left. Here, Darren murmured. We pushed through a row of thick bushes and found a second clearing, smaller, darker, the canopy overhead blocking most of the moonlight. My stomach dropped. There on the ground, half-conscious, lay the junior. His shirt was torn, his face pale, his hands trembling uncontrollably. Darren knelt beside him instantly. Hey, Darren said softly, you're okay, you're safe, can you hear me? The boy tried to speak but only managed a weak rasp. Help someone. Someone's still out there. Darren gently helped him sit up. Who's out there? The boy's eyes widened with terror. He said someone was next. Who? I whispered. Who's next? The boy stared at me. Darren noticed instantly, his grip on the junior's arm tightened. What do you mean he's next? Darren demanded. Who told you that? The junior's breathing turned frantic. I tried to warn him. I tried. Warn who? The boy lifted a trembling finger, pointed directly at me. My stomach flipped. Darren, why is he pointing at me? Darren pulled me closer protectively. Don't worry, he's in shock. He doesn't know what he's saying. but the junior shook his head. Violently, "No, no, he's next," he said the boy with him, the boy who didn't run, he's next. My blood went cold, the boy who didn't run, that was me. Mr. Collins rushed into the clearing, panting, "We need to get him back to camp right now," but the junior grabbed Darren's arm with surprising strength. "It wasn't an animal," he whispered. "It wasn't a person either." "What was it?" Darren asked. The boy shuddered so violently I thought he might pass out again. "Eyes," he breathed. "I saw eyes. Cold filled my body again." "Eyes, red eyes," the junior whispered. "They were watching me, watching all of us," he said. "He said he already picked someone." "Pick someone for what?" Darren asked. The boy's lips trembled. He lifted his hand again, pointed at me once more. "For him." My heart stopped before Darren, or I could speak. A loud crack echoed to the trees like someone snapping a heavy branch. We all shot to our feet, and then we heard it, not a scream, not a moan, not footsteps, breathing heavy. Breathing right behind us. Darren spun around, flashlight shaking in his hand. But before he could shine it, something moved in the darkness, fast, silent, predatory, and Darren shoved me backwards, shouting, "Aaron, get down." Darren shoved me so hard I hit the ground and rolled across the dirt. The impact knocked the breath from my lungs. But instinct pushed me to scramble back onto my elbows. I turned just in time to see Darren step in front of me again, flashlight raised like a weapon. "Show yourself," he shouted into the darkness. Nothing answered, but the breathing continued, heavy, wet, close enough to make my skin crawl. Mr. Collins moved beside Darren, his own flashlight trembling in his grip. "Everyone stay calm," he breathed, though he didn't sound calm at all. "Stay together." Back slowly toward the camp, the junior on the ground whimpered, clutching at his chest. Darren knelt and helped him stand, lifting most of his weight. I moved to support his other side, but the kid recoiled violently. "No," he gasped. "Don't touch me, he'll see you. He'll think you're me." My blood froze. "What does that mean?" I whispered. "Who will think I'm you?" But he was shaking too hard to answer. Darren looked at me over the boy's shoulder, his eyes held something fierce, protective, terrified. "Aaron, listen to me. Stay between me and Mr. Collins. Don't fall behind." I nodded, though my legs felt numb. We began moving through the trees, the junior stumbling, Darren half carrying him. Mr. Collins held his flashlight high, scanning every shadow like something could leap out at any second. The breathing followed us, always from the darkness behind, never getting closer but never moving away. It was like it was hurting us, guiding us, waiting. "Darren," I whispered, "what if this is some sick joke? Maybe upperclassmen try and scare us." He didn't look back. "Then why did that kid collapse? Why did he scream like that? Why did he say someone was picked?" I swallowed hard. "You think he meant me?" Darren's jaw tightened. "I don't know." But his voice said he did know, and he hated it. We kept moving, my heart hammering louder than my footsteps. The path grew steeper, the moonlight slipped behind clouds, shadows twisted and stretched across the dirt like hands reaching for us. The junior's breathing turned ragged again. "He's coming," he whispered. "He's coming." Darren demanded. The kid's eyes darted around wildly. "I don't know." I didn't see him. I only saw the eyes, the red eyes. Mr. Collins shuddered. "That's impossible. Animals don't have red eyes. Humans don't breathe like that either." Darren muttered. We finally reached the edge of a slope overlooking the trail that led back to camp. Relief surged through me. "We're almost there," I said breathlessly, but Darren's grip on my arm suddenly tightened. "Wait." He stared down the hill at the trail, at the movement. It was a silhouette, standing perfectly still, facing us, watching. A tall figure, too tall. My stomach twisted so violently I nearly doubled over. What is that?" I whispered. Darren stepped in front of me. Again, everyone stayed behind me. The figure didn't move, didn't shift, didn't breathe, at least not in a way we could hear. Mr. Collins gasped softly. "That's a person. It has to be. Maybe a law student." "No law student stands like that," Darren said. The junior shook his head frantically. "Not him, not him." Before any of us could react, the silhouette tilted its head slowly, unnaturally, like a puppet someone had twisted. My knees almost buckled. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Darren, why is he doing that?" "I don't know," he breathed. The figure lifted an arm, pointed straight at me. Darren's body tense like he was ready to lunge. "Aaron, get behind that tree now." "No," I whispered, shaking. "I'm not leaving you." "Aaron, move before He could finish, the figure vanished, not walked away, not turned, vanished. One moment it was there, the next moment the trail was empty, the air grew colder. Mr. Collins' voice trembled. We need to run, and so we did, we sprinted. Down the hill, sliding on loose dirt, branches scraping our arms and legs. Darren dragged Junior with him while I kept pace as best I could. The camp lights finally flickered through the trees, small, warm, familiar, but the breathing returned. Not behind us this time ahead. Darren grabbed my arm and yanked me the side just as a shape moved across the trail where we would have stepped. Stop, he yelled. The junior tripped and fell. Mr. Collins nearly lost his flashlight, and then a teacher's voice. Hey, over here. It was Coach Harris running toward us with two other staff members. Relief washed through me so intensely I almost collapsed. What are you kids doing out here? Coach barked. We've been looking everywhere. There's something in the woods, Mr. Collins shouted. We found Dylan unconscious. The staff rushed to grab the junior who slumped against him, still shaking, but Coach Harris turned to Darren and me, eyes sharp. Where did you two go? Why weren't you with a group? Darren stepped forward before I could answer. It's my fault, he said. Don't blame Aaron. I pulled him away. Coach frowned. For what reason? Before Darren could answer, something crashed in the woods behind us. Everyone froze. Coach lifted his flashlight. Who's back there? He shouted. Silence. Darren grabbed my hand again, but this time he didn't let go. I'm taking him back to camp, Darren said firmly. Coach hesitated, then nodded. Go, stay together and do not leave the main path. Darren didn't have to tell me twice. We hurried back to camp, flinching at every sound. When we finally stepped into the clearing full of tents and lanterns, I let out the breath I've been holding for what felt like hours. But Darren didn't look relieved. He looked terrified. Aaron, he whispered, turning me to face him. Someone out there, something out there is following you. I know, I said softly. He shook his head. No, you don't understand. His voice trembled. For the first time since I had met him, he took both my hands and his. It wasn't just following you, he whispered. It was hunting you. My heart stopped before I could respond. A scream erupted from the far side of camp. A different voice this time, a girl shouting, Aaron, he's looking for Aaron, and Darren's face went pale. The scream sliced through the camp like a blade. Conversations died instantly. Lanterns swung as students and teachers snapped their heads toward the source of the voice. My body locked. My breath caught somewhere in my chest and refused to move. Aaron, the girl shouted again. He's asking for Aaron. Darren didn't hesitate. He grabbed my wrist and pulled me close, practically shielding me with his whole body. His voice was low and urgent. Stay behind me. Do not move unless I tell you. I barely nodded, my mouth too dry to answer. Anxiety climbed up my spine like cold fingers. All around us, students whisper my name in confusion, turning in circles, trying to spot whoever was causing the commotion. Coach Harris stormed across the clearing, demanding answers. Who's asking for him? Where is he? But nobody could answer because nobody had seen a face, just a shape, a tall, distorted outline on the far side of camp, standing motionless between two rows of tents, watching. I could feel before I saw it, a pressure in the air, heavy, wrong, like the force itself was holding its breath. Darren tightened his grip on my wrist. Aaron, listen carefully. If he comes any closer. He stopped because the figure stepped forward. A ripple of panic spread through the camp as students backed away, bumping into coolers, chairs, and each other. Teachers rushed to push everyone aside, forming a clumsy barrier between the figure and the rest of the camp. My heart slammed so hard I felt in my throat. The figure took another step, then another. Lantern light brushed over him for the first time. He wasn't a stranger from the woods. He wasn't some supernatural threat. He was a teenager. A student, a boy from another homeroom. I recognize him vaguely, tall, quiet. Kept himself. His clothes were dirty and torn, like he'd been crawling through the forest for hours. His face was pale and streaked with tears. His breathing was ragged, uneven, desperate. But the worst part wasn't his appearance. It was his eyes, wide, dilated, bloodshot from fear, and locked directly on me. You, he said, voice cracking, I need to talk to you. A ripple of confusion passed through the staff. Coach Harris stepped forward. Son, you're clearly in shock. You need to sit down, we'll call for help, but the boy shook his head violently. No, 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 Aaron needs. To hear this right now, I felt Darren tense beside me. Aaron is not going anywhere with you. The boy's eyes filled with tears. Please, I didn't know what he wanted, I didn't understand, I didn't think he would come after anyone else. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I asked, barely fine in my voice. Who's coming after who? The boy took a step closer, ignoring the teacher's warnings. His legs shook so badly I thought he might collapse. I heard him earlier whispering like he was talking to someone who wasn't there. My blood turned to ice. What did he say? Whispered. The boy looked straight into my eyes. He kept repeating her name. The camp erupted into murmurs. Students scrambled back even farther. Teachers exchanged frantic glances. Mr. Collins gasped, but Darren didn't move. He didn't loosen his grip on me. He stayed rooted in place, solid, protective, terrified. Why me? I asked. What does he want? The boy swallowed. He thinks you were the one who saw him. Saw him? Repeated. Saw who? The boy's voice broke completely. My brother. Silence. Thick, suffocating silence that wrapped itself around every living thing in the camp. He died in these woods last year. The boy whispered. People said he ran away, said he hid his head, but I know the truth. Tears streamed down his cheeks. He didn't run, he was pushed. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. Pushed by who? The boy looked at me like the answer was carved into my skin. By the man who's been following us. Students shrieked. Teachers reached for their phones. Coach Harris shouted orders. Panic exploded like a storm, but through it all Darren stayed next to me, breathing hard, chest rising and falling like he was preparing to fight something none of us could see. The boy continued, voice trembling. He saw you in the woods tonight and thought you were my brother. That's why he followed. That's why he whispered your name. He thinks you came back. But that's impossible, I said. I look nothing like. Yes, you do, the boy cried. You do, from behind. Same hair, same jacket, same height. He thought you were him. My blood ran cold. Coach Harris shouted. Everyone inside the activity lodge now. Students broke into a run. Teachers shepherded them like startled animals. The clearing turned chaotic in seconds, but Darren didn't move. He turned to me. Slowly, and for the first time since the first night of camp, he looked genuinely scared. Aaron, he whispered, you need to stay with me. Do not leave my side. I won't, I said, my voice shook. He grabbed my face gently, forcing me to meet his eyes. I'm serious. If he thinks you're someone else, if he thinks you're that boy. He stopped breathing hard. I'm not letting anything happen to you. And before I could answer, before I could even breathe, the force behind us exhaled a long, wet human breath. Right at our backs, Darren spun around, pulling me behind him, and standing at the edge of the trees, half hidden in shadow, was a man, tall, still staring directly at me. His voice slid through the darkness like broken glass. You came back. I froze. Darren stepped forward. Fists clenched. The man smiled faintly. I've been waiting for you. Some people spend their whole lives running from the things that haunt them. Others face those shadows head-on. But sooner or later, every truth reveals itself, no matter how deep it tries to hide. Would you have followed Darren into the darkness? Have you ever met someone who would protect you at all costs? And what would you do if a stranger mistook you for someone who never made a home? If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next